Well, hello everyone, Texie88 here and welcome to another review. And now we're taking a look at Nigel Mansell's World Championship, a Formula 1 car racing game for the Sinclair ZX Spectrum range of computers. It's 128k only, and it also came out for the Commodore Amiga, the Amstrad CPC and the Nintendo Entertainment System. Now, the thing that most made me want to take a look at this game is at the time of recording this, I'd just seen a video on the YouTube channel Seb's Place, in which he did a video about the first ZX Spectrum games versus the last, which were better, and the video contained a selection of publishers, and he sought out to find the first ZX Spectrum game published by that company and then the last. And as a result of that, from what I can make out, Nigel Mansell's World Championship was the very last ZX Spectrum game to be published by Gremlin Graphics. So, as I quite enjoy the odd car racing game from time to time, I thought, Texie, why not give it a whirl? So that's what I'm planning on doing. So you got choice of race single circuit, full race season, control selection and driving school. Although one thing I should point out before I start looking at this game is that unless you were using a ZX Spectrum Plus 3, which used a floppy disk version of the game, expect to have to wait several minutes for the game to load. Even though this game's 128k only, so we'll just race a single circuit. So we get to choose a course from multiple different countries. And I do like the way that the globe on the screens rotates to the place, the country where the course is set. That's a nice touch. Well, since I'm from the UK and live in the UK, I think I'll pick Britain. Current length 2,969 miles, built on the site of a wartime bomber base and using former runways. This is an extremely fast circuit where wind adds an extra dimension to the race. The bends are approached very fast, so accurate cornering is essential. Weather report dry, 2%. So you can tune the car if you like. You can choose what kind of tyres you want, different kinds of aerofoils, gear ratios, and whether you want manual or automatic gears. At the moment it's set to automatic by the looks of things. Yep, so I think I'll keep that medium since I'm not really a petrol head, so I'm not going to change too much about this. I think I'll keep the hard tyres. Okay, let's race the circuit. Well, just to let you know, I cut out a bit in which you had to wait for some more stuff to load, as you probably guessed from the press play on tape that you saw. Although it only took a couple of seconds wait, I had to wait nearly half an hour for the next bits to load. So that's the kind of drudgery you have to put up with on top of loading the main menu section that you just saw. At this rate, you'll be waiting the best part of an hour before you can even play the goddamn thing. I wish they could have put a turbo loader on that, but oh well. Just be thankful I went through that drudgery so you don't have to. This had better be worth it after all that. God, I thought it wasn't going to move for a moment. Oh my word. Well, one thing I will say, that the footage is, and it seems like they've gone to the switched to the idea that's already been adapted by the Lotus games on the 16 bits, of being able to hold down fire to accelerate rather than having to hold down up like you quite often. Oh my god. But anyway, back to what I was saying. What I'm seeing here is incredibly choppy. So it's very hard to react to something because, especially when you just had a whole bunch of snaking corners just then, and it was really hard to follow what was happening on screen because everything's so blooming jerky. I mean, look at this. It reminds me of when I was playing the Amiga version of Power Drift back in the day. That was choppy as hell as well. It made it really hard to follow what the track was doing. Oh god. And to think, after those menu sections where I select my course, I had to sit through about half an hour of loading, and I get this. Have I actually been able to get at any decent speed on any of this track? Oh dear. Right, so there's pits in this, so if you... Oh dear, this is really disappointing. I mean, it's not the slowest game I've played. I mean, at a push, I'd say this was faster than Outrun on the Spectrum, although that's not really saying much. Maybe it's about even Stevens and they're about just as choppy as each other. Well, not counting the tunnel sections in that, when the game slowed down to an absolute blooming slideshow. But this really isn't much better, and it really needs to be smoother than this. Heck, yeah, I think I'd happily say that on certain occasions, even hard driving on the Spectrum was smoother than this, and that used 3D polygons. Shaded polygons, I hasten to add. Oh, God. I'm position 3, so I'm doing better than I thought I would, but this really isn't particularly enjoyable. And in preparation for this review, I had a look at what magazines of the time reviewed the game. And Your Sinclair, they gave it 80%. And I think it was Sinclair User who gave it 90%. I thought, like, what? Are you sure you're even looking at the same game? Oh dear. But while this clearly isn't the worst game that ever came out for the ZX Spectrum, when you consider that Gremlin Graphics had quite a reasonable, at the very least, a reasonable pedigree of publishing of some pretty cool ZX Spectrum games, such as Jack the Nipper, and they go out with a whimper with this. I mean, graphics are nice. Well, as nice as they could be, given that they had to be monochrome to avoid the Spectrum's usual attribute problems. I'm still in position 3, goodness knows where. Oh, the two in front of me must be one of those dots on the radar screen near the top left corner there, but I don't know which two, because just because there's two in front of me, it doesn't necessarily mean they're the two I need to overtake to take pole position, because they may be ones I'm about to lap. And that's, of course, if I even catch up to them at all. But yeah, I don't think they should have even bothered with this, to be perfectly frank. You have got to be having a giraffe. I got to go through all that loading crap again just to play again. Well, all I can say to that is hell to the no. I am not wasting the best part of 40 odd minutes just to reload all that, have another go. I'm really not all that impressed with Nigel Mansell's World Championship. This came out in 1993, so it was pretty much the death during the very last breaths of the ZX Spectrum's heyday. By this point, a lot of people had gone on to the 16 bits, and I am really surprised that this was even released, because it really isn't smooth, and it needs to be. But my word, yeah. Linda Barker reviewed this game in issue 87 of Your Sinclair, which came out in March 1993, and she gave it 80%. Yeah, and yes, it was Sinclair User who gave the game 90% when they reviewed it in issue 134, which came out a month later, April 1993. I mean, I also noticed that I don't think in everything I saw, I didn't see any racers' names, nor even any racers. I didn't even see Nigel Mansell, so it suggests to me they just got permission to use his name and slapped his name on it just to help sell a few more copies, as he was quite a big deal in Formula One racing at the time. But in fact, when I looked at the instructions, I wasn't even expecting to be able to use keyboard controls, as I don't think I saw anything suggesting that I could even select keys. But as luck would have it, even at the very beginning, I quickly cottoned on to the fact that it was using the very popular QAOP space, which seems to be a very popular keyboard control for ZX Spectrum games. So what do I think of the game in general? Well, more specifically, let's talk about the graphics. Obviously they're in monochrome, as I said earlier, and they're quite detailed. In stills, it looks pretty good, and you even see details, and even when it's animated, you see details of the wheels, of the front wheels, which are visible on screen, turning as you turn corners and steer and the like, which is a nice touch. I was quite impressed with that. Although the animation wise, as we saw, the frame rate is pretty disappointing. And if you wanted to play a decent car racing game, you wouldn't pick this one. There are better ones out there that came out earlier in the ZX Spectrum's life. I mean, even Checkered Flag's smoother than that, and that was one of the Spectrum's earliest car racing games, especially using the first-person viewpoint that we just saw in this game. Although admittedly there are no actual opponents in that one, so it depends how much appeal it would have to a person who's used to being able to race against actual opponents. Sound, well, AY sound can't really complain about it. It does the usual tidy engine style sound effects that you expect from the AY sound chip. I wasn't expecting anything particularly enthralling. Well, I both was and wasn't, given that by this point the ZX Spectrum in general was just over a decade old, and maybe there was a part of me that was expecting something a bit more special after programmers may have become more accustomed to what the ZX Spectrum was capable of doing, but I'm not quite sure what to say about the sound. I didn't hate it, I just wished it was something a bit more special for a game that came out in 1993. Gameplay, well, as I said, the choppiness of the overall updating of the screen made it quite hard to follow what the track was doing. I mean, yeah, you've got the map in the top middle of the screen, but it wasn't an enormous amount of help because of its smaller scale. It can be a bit hard to tell precisely when the next corner is going to be when you had a lot of zigzagging, like I did towards the start of that race. I mean, you know they're there, but you're not absolutely sure exactly where they are in relation to one another because of the smaller scale of that map. But at least I picked a course that had 3 laps in it, so I didn't have to suffer too much. But the fact that you have to reload all that nonsense from the start of side 2 again after each race. I mean, can you imagine if you'd done a championship and had to go through all that drudgery and weren't using a ZX Spectrum Plus 3, which could use floppy disks and could load things like that in the twinkling of an eye? Goodness me. So yeah, so I'm not going to be as kind in my final score as Linda Barker of Your Sinclair and Tony Kay of Sinclair User were in their respective reviews. There are plenty of other far more enjoyable racing games on the ZX Spectrum that came out years earlier than this and performed a lot better and were a lot smoother. So I think I'm going to give Nigel Mansell's World Championship 4 out of 10. Not the worst game I've played, but by this point you just can't put out games as jerky as that, especially not car racing games which rely on speed and a good frame rate. It just doesn't work. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that review. Hope to catch you on another video soon. Texie88 out.